Hi Alex, how are you?
Good.
So, we're gonna chat about board games. And first things first, can you please introduce yourself? What is happening these days? What are you doing? And what is your journey like so far?
Hi. So I'm Alex Mont. I'm an avid board gamer with Asperger syndrome. I've been playing board games like ever since I was very young. Like I think my mom told me like the first board game that I played like we was even before I remember it was like when I was like 2 years old, and um and like she told me this story. It was this like really simple game, like you roll a die, um, like you roll a die, and the dice have different shapes on it. You're trying to collect all the shapes, and my mom thought it was really cute. It was whenever you get a semicircle, I say, "Hey, you got a hemicircle." Um, and ever since then, really enjoyed um all kinds of games, like video games, like board games. I went to like my first big board game convention I went to, where like it was when I was in graduate school, like about like 10 or like maybe like 12 or 13 years ago. Um, and it was like just I was so impressed, like so huge. There's like probably like thousands and thousands of people there, like whole rows of um like game designers, like game companies showing off their newest games. Um, and I've even gotten involved in a lot of um, like designing and playtesting games myself. Like some of these conventions have places you go, like you can meet designers who are playtesting new versions of their games. So that's one thing I really enjoy, because it like gives you because I really like the sort of kind of puzzle solving and an analytical aspect of like trying to understand the rules of the game and figure out the best strategies, like figure out how it can be improved. So like it's like lots of times game designers are really happy like when they get me to play their games. Like I'll tell them what's wrong with the
But
game.
yeah, I think you're pretty apt with it. You're not
Yeah,
shy to go ahead and tell other
yeah,
people about their board
yeah,
game. And how we got in touch is when I told you about my board game and
yeah.
got a chance to review it. We'll come to that, but right now I want to go back to basics. So the time you played your first board game and your entire journey, it has really been part of your life as per the conventions or even
Yeah.
play. I would like to go back to that little Alex. You're playing the board game. And before that, if I can just share about, started loving board games because I could not, I have a disability, I have a physical disability. So I would see my cousins play all these physical running games. And there were moments when they would sit down and they would play cards or Ludo or these very basic games. And I realized that no, that was my time, that was my time to connect with them. And so I developed this love for board games because it gave me more control. But then I realized it's not just that. You can actually learn a lot if you play games like chess, or if you play even Monopoly, for instance, or
Yes.
Clipboard Risk. You can actually learn some really good tactics and skills that you could later apply to your work as well. So for me, it became a learning ground. What was it like for you?
Yeah. So I think I also felt like it was a learning ground, but sort of from a different perspective. Because I think that a lot of times, um, Asperger's syndrome, I kind of have a lot of difficulty with social interaction. So, it's like a hard time, like I have a hard time kind of like making friends in school and stuff like that, because I get a hard time kind of knowing how to start and uh, understanding what people are saying. Um, and board games kind of have a way of it's like a social situation, but it's somewhat of like an it's not like a more a narrow situation where you have like a more clearly defined goal, so it's easier to navigate. um
Yeah,
and
go on.
yeah, it's like I know, okay, like in a game, like, okay, like these are the things you can do. Um, like yeah, like these are the things you're allowed to do. These are things you're not allowed to do. So one thing that's interesting about board games, I think that they're kind of very different. Like there's different types of games that I think are different in sort of like what sort of social interaction challenges they have. So like probably like the least challenging version is more like the traditional board games, where it's like, okay, you're just trying to win the game, you're trying to get the most points or something. So like some of the more like they're more like there's some games where like there's a lot more about like interplayer politics, like you're trying to like attack the other players or convince the other player to attack someone else. And then there are some games that are kind of like role-playing games, like games like Dungeons and Dragons, where I think it's even more fuzzy. Like it's like there's sort of dungeon master who would say, I want my character to do this, and let's say it's like kind of dungeon master's judgment whether you can do that and whether it works. And like there may not even be a clearly defined goal. Like it may just be it's more like you're trying to tell a story as opposed to having a clearly defined goal. So I think trying out trying out all of these games has kind of given me a way to kind of get experience with social interaction in these different situations.
I think this is interesting because in both of our cases, somewhere because of our disabilities, we tend to enjoy board games, and somewhere board games play a huge role in our life to make it a bit more social or maybe experience life in a different way. I would also like to ask you a bit about Asperger's syndrome, because not a lot of people know about it. And what is it like? How do you experience life with it? And if you can just share a bit more about that.
Okay, you have a good question. So Asperger's syndrome is for like a mild version of autism, and to me, I think it's a really kind of broad question. Trying to figure out what the best way to answer it is. So like I generally think of like I think what it means to me is that like sometimes they get overwhelmed when there's like a lot of information coming at me and I don't really understand it all, like especially like I think that manifests also in like noise sensitivity. Like if sometimes it's like really like it's really loud or something, or lots of people are talking, it's kind of hard for me to navigate. And I like it when there's when there's something that's like a defined sphere that I can dig deep into and really understand.
So you like linear information, and that would be easier for you to process, like one thing at a time.
Well, not necessarily, partially, but I think it's not so much as like, is it one thing at a time, or is it multiple things at once? It's like, can I take all these things and I understand it in terms of a unified whole? So like I work as a computer programmer. I'm a big math person. Like I work on I work at a quantitative trading firm on Wall Street. So I do like all math and programming. And I kind of like it because it's like, okay, I can it's like, okay, we have this huge system. Like obviously like I only understand like a very small part of like all the things that are all things that are happening in our code, but I can say, okay, well, this part of the code, this is my part, and this part I really understand.
Okay.
Um, sometimes um sometimes in like social situations, like um you never get that kind of understanding. Like you um like um so like sometimes people say something and then but they don't really mean exactly what they say, so you don't necessarily understand. You don't understand why something is happening the way it's happening. Like I've actually experienced this problem, interestingly, when I've tried to like get groups together for games. Like I'm in a few like these online groups in New York City. I've tried to like get like there's specific games like I wanted to play. I've tried to get groups together to play, and sometimes like I'll get them together, like they'll play a couple sessions, and then they'll be like, and then they'll leave. They'll be like, if the commute was too long, or like I didn't really like what I couldn't make the time. I got busy, and I don't really know to what extent it's like those are the real reasons, or to what extent it's like they didn't like the game, or they thought I was running it poorly, and like they're just trying to like be polite and come up with an excuse. Of course, like if the artist is trying to be polite, like it's not really helping because it's not telling me what it is I
Exactly.
need to change.
Exactly. I totally hear you on that because you're trying to really contribute in the board game industry. You're playtesting, you're
Yeah,
really trying to bring forth even your experience of the disability. You're trying to utilize it. You're trying to see
yeah,
what works, what doesn't
yes,
work. It's a great resource. I also just want a bit more clarity that so this your challenge is more social. uh,
yes.
Asperger syndrome does not affect your daily life, right? You're independent, you're able
Yeah.
to. Uh, I'm asking because a lot of people don't understand. We and it's important to ask.
I mean, I think it's I mean, honestly, like I think that my disability is sort of mild enough that I don't think it affects daily life that much. But I think a big part of it is that um is I'm able to like I've been able to create a living situation where like that works well for me. So for instance, like I don't drive a car. Like I felt like the driving a car like the kind of thing that's like um it has the sort of parts that are hard for me. Like you have to make quick decisions, you have to read other people, and obviously like there's like obviously you get it wrong, like it's a big deal, like you get an accident. So I don't drive a car. Unfortunately, I've been able to like live in places um where I have access to public transportation, or I have access to cars, and have access to like Ubers and stuff. So it's not been that hard to get around. And also I've kind of been, I think, really lucky with kind of I'm very fortunate to with the places that I've worked. I felt like um they've all like they're all like for like big tech companies, and they've all like kind of really valued me, and they're all kind of been willing to work with me when the issues have cropped up.
I think that makes a lot of difference because by the end of the day, we have to create systems around us that can help us do our
Yeah.
work, live a more dignified life. And
Yes.
I also understand that because I live in Pakistan. Currently, I'm in Sweden, but I'm in Pakistan. And Pakistan is not that accessible in terms of infrastructure or even when it comes to the stigma of disability. So when you have to create your space, even if I'm walking into a space as the boss, as someone who's going to call the shots and who's actually the CEO of the company, even then I have to fight off some preconceived notions about disability, that can she even do her job, should we invest in her company or not. And then comes the infrastructure part, that getting an office, for example, is very hard in Pakistan because there aren't any accessible buildings, so you have to work from home, you have to manage your team. But then I think this is also where board games come in, because somewhere they help you strategize and understand these are your resources, these are the players you have to work with,
Yeah.
this is the end goal. So board games, just routing it back to how it affects us, I think it has actually helped me understand my disability and how I'm going to take it forth as well. I also wanted to ask you that you spoke about too much information coming your way, and that could be disturbing sometimes. But don't you think in board games also there's like a lot of information to process instantly, like resources, players, what is he doing, what is she doing, what's going on? So what do you do with that?
I mean, I think that it's one difference between one thing that kind of makes it easier with board games is that it's visual. Is that like board games are very visual medium. So like so it's very easy for me to like take in information visually, because I can look at look at this, I look at this, I look at this, I look at this, and I think I played enough of these board games that I really understand the patterns, so I am able to zero in on what information is important, and also so I think that it's really kind of the visual aspect that makes it easier for me. There are some games like I tried to play like the game. There's some games like Dungeons and Dragons where it's more about verbal interpretation. It's more about the like the dungeon master is like describing something, and
Yeah.
in that case, like I think it can be hard for me because because first of all, like you don't really know as much what information is relevant, because all DMs do it differently. Also, if you like it's really easy, like if you miss something, you don't get another chance to go back and look at it. And also another thing is that if like you miss something, you don't actually know if it's because you missed it, or if it was just the dungeon master made a mistake and didn't say it. So so one thing I like about board game, like with board games, it feels like a fair challenge. Like if like there's all this information there. Like if I miss something, like I don't read my card and like I make a bad decision, well, like that feels fair. Like it was that's part of the game, is like making sure you read your cards. But like in games where it's like a person describing it, it's harder for me, because like you don't really even know if you did anything wrong, and also it's more of like a social conflict situation. If like did I get screwed by someone not explaining it right?
Does it also apply to physical games, for example football, for instance?
Yeah.
Because with football, of course, there's visually you can see what's going on, but then do you think somewhere there's also like a verbal information that you have to process? How would physical games be for you?
One physical game that I've done recently is called quad ball. Like, have you heard of Quidditch? From Harry Potter?
Of course I have.
Oh yeah. So anyway, they made like some few folks made like a real world version of it. Like if you could actually play in the real world. And then later that he changed the name to quad ball. But so it's sort of like a combination also of like football and dodgeball. Like there's two different there's a ball you score with. You're trying to like run it to the other side and like throw it in the other troops, kind of like soccer or something. But then there's also players called beaters who are who have these dodgeballs. Like they're trying to like throw someone, like throw the dodgeball at someone, and like if you hit them, then they're out, and they have to go back to their side, their hoop, to tag back in. So like, that game, I think I really like, and it's like really fun. Like I like kind of like active games, like I don't need to get exercise, and like my job is just sitting in front of the computer, and of course board games are just sitting in front. It's like I try to like add exercise to my life. So as far as the information processing is concerned, I don't think that it's that hard, because there actually isn't that, like, this game, like there actually isn't that much information going on at any particular time. I mean, like they're like only like there are only like a few people on the field, and you can, and like you usually paying attention to maybe like one or two other players at a time. Like maybe like there's one person you're defending, or like there's another person I have to watch in case they pass the ball there. But it's not like really overwhelming.
Wow, I think then it also depends on what type of game it is and
Yeah.
how you navigate it. I was watching Queen's Gambit the other day. Have you seen it? The season on Netflix?
No, I haven't.
It's a nice season. I really like the storyline. It's very entertaining. It's about this girl who plays chess and she literally becomes, okay, I'm not going to give you any spoilers. But anyway, so I was actually watching the making of that show. And in that show, they talk about how this girl, she's completely able bodied, not of that, like, it doesn't have to do anything with a disability, but she spoke about how she felt more control over the chessboard with the 64 squares. And that really stayed with me. Because being somebody with a disability who has very little control over the actual world that we live in, suddenly, you have all the control on this table, you have this board, and that really resonated with me in terms of mobility, that I can't move the way I want to move, but I can move this player anywhere I want to move. What do you think about that?
I like that, like in board games, like you have more information, like what the what the possible moves are.
Yes, and then you can do them.
Yeah, and of course, like there's some games where like there's hidden information, but I feel like when there's hidden information, it's like it's interesting because like part of the game is figuring out the hidden information. Like sometimes there are games where like it's like a logical deduction game. Like you don't, like there's something like they're like there's like a board with like something like hidden elements on it, and you're trying to figure out what the hidden elements are. So those could be like a fun puzzle where like there's something that's hidden, but you kind of like that it's hidden, and like these are tools we have to figure it out.
Of course, I think the curiosity of it and the challenge of it is always very intriguing, and you just want to go on.
Yep.
I would also like to ask you about some of your favorite games that you've played. I remember I played Catan, I think last year, once or twice. We have a huge board game club here in Sweden. Like you'll have these smaller pockets of people coming together playing board games, but most of them are in Swedish, and I don't speak the language yet. That's why I'm unable to go and meet them. But tell me some of your favorite board games that you've played. And
so one game that one game I like to play recently is a game called Ark Nova. So Ark Nova is a game about building a zoo, and it's one of like these games like really trying to optimize like what your sequence of moves is. Like you have these 5 different actions you can do, and like how powerful the actions are depends on what order you do them. So like you have this row of cards, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That represents different things, like you build an enclosure or acquire an animal, or like do a conservation project. And then these are, and like every time you use a card, like it goes down to like the value 1 slot, and the others shift up. So like, and the higher slot it's in, like the more powerful the action is. So you wanna figure out the sequence so that you're doing the higher numbered actions more often, getting more value out of them. So I really like that kind of gameplay. Like you're trying to solve this puzzle of how to do things in the optimal way. So another game that I like it plays is a game called Spirit Island. So Spirit Island is a really interesting game. So Spirit Island is a cooperative game. You're all working on the same team, and the goal of the game is that you're all there's this island with these natives on it, and they're being invaded by colonizers, and you're all like nature spirits on this island, like magical spirits trying to like use their powers to fight off the invaders. Okay. So the way it works is that each player has a different spirit, they have different powers, and each spirit starts with a different section of the board. You're all working together, but like you're expanding your powers as you're growing the game. The bad guys are invading. You're trying to fight them off. So what I really like about the game is that I think it solves like a problem that a lot of cooperative games have. I think the problem a lot of cooperative games have is that sometimes like if you have like one player who's one player who's like really into the game, like really who like really wants to think hard about it, and like everyone else other people aren't thinking very hard about it, or they don't want to think as hard about it, then it could be friction because I'm trying to solve the puzzle for if I think really hard, I'm trying to solve the puzzle for everyone. Like other players, like they may not want to go along with it, or they feel like it's just me telling them what to do. So what's great about Spirit Island is that each player is kind of their own part of the board. Because like I can solve the puzzle on my part of the board, and like someone else can solve the puzzle on their part of the board, and then we're all and then like we're all still cooperating, and like we can all help each other. Like I can say, okay, well, I'll use this. I have like one extra power I can use. If they need help on their side of the board, so I can give them a buff or something, and then so there's still that communication, that working together. But it's okay if like one person is playing at a higher level and the other players then that player is just maybe they're going to do better on their part of the board, and like any extra resource they have they can send out to help the other players. So it still means that you have that cooperation, but like everyone still has like a full agency themselves.
I think these games are amazing for team building and to just connect people as an icebreaker at any event, at any gathering. And I love cooperative games myself. Unfortunately, we have little time left, but I do have one last question for you. And that is, how do you think we can have more inclusion when it comes to board games? Because clearly we are two beneficiaries of good board games, the experiences, we can see the effect in our lives. I ended up creating a board game out of playing board games. Like, what more validation do I have to give? And you're at the board game convention. So what can we tell these big giant companies who are designing board games, who are arranging these conventions, and even players, how to be more inclusive?
So, that's a good question. So first of all, I'll correct you a little bit, is that like most of these games aren't really built by giant companies. It's I think the market is kind of a little more like the market for books, whereas like it's more like kind of individual. Like most game design teams are like only a few people. Like they're making the games and selling it to these publishers. But I think that to answer your question about kind of how can games be more inclusive. Well, first of all, I think obviously there's a lot of different disabilities. There's physical disabilities, there's intellectual disabilities, and of course, I can't really speak to all of them. I can only speak to only speaks like my personal experiences and will be helpful for me. So I think that one thing that that's one thing I think comes up a lot, like when I think about the kinds of the experiences that I've had that are bad, where things didn't work out, it seems like it was usually because the other person wanted a very different experience than I did. Like maybe I kind of really want to focus on on optimizing the game. Like someone else, they just want to kind of just hang out and goof off, or maybe like I'm really interested in kind of like making a character who's really good at beating the monsters. Like someone else is more interested um in like kind of role playing and like, talking with the other characters in the game. So I think one thing that would be, so I think the one way to make that more inclusive would be if there's ways to design the game so that even if the two people, even if they like different things, they like very different aspects of the game, like they could still play together. Like, so for instance, like if you're making a like one idea, like maybe if you're making like a Dungeons and Dragons kind of game, like maybe one idea would be, okay, what if each different like types of characters had like a completely different different mechanic. Like what if like maybe you had like a wizard that like like a wizard, like the way the wizard casts spells, like solving really complicated math puzzles. But like maybe like there's a bard where like the way the bard casts spells is that like he like improvises a song and like everyone at the table votes on how good it is, and that determines how good the spell is, or something like that. And I mean, obviously you'd have to try these out and test these, but if you had like if you had something where everyone could focus on their part of the game, everyone focus on the part that they're interested in, and then you had a way for like those to interact, so everyone's collaborating. Then I think then like a game might be better for everyone.
I think it's good that the collaboration aspect of a board game can literally trigger the collaboration sense in the real world. When you wrap up the board game, you put that on side, and I think that one experience can actually lead to so much more that can happen in the world that we live in. We too are one example of that, and I would love to take this conversation to more spaces where we can invite other people with different kinds of disabilities to explore board games. Maybe they do, maybe they don't, but we've seen the effect of it, and I think board games are not going anywhere. Even if everything's becoming more digitized, I still think that board games will have its own place for the enthusiasts like you and I. So I want to thank you, Alex, and this is definitely first of the many podcasts that we would be recording, because there's so much more I want to talk to you about. We've briefly touched upon inclusion. I think there's so much more to unpack over there, and we haven't really gone into the detail of the game dynamics, and we haven't discussed Woopie Town. So a lot has to be done, and I will be calling you again soon. But for now, this is going to be it.